What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is very nearly complete. And today we are in Atlanta, Georgia, talking about the Georgia State Panthers, a team that was not that great last season, but has some hopes and expectations of improving that record. Is that going to be reality, though, here in 2025? My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Thank you all so much for clicking on the video and, of course, for helping to support the channel. You want to support it even further, go down below, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hey, you can ring the bell. Turning on notifications will ensure you don't miss a thing. Now, during the college football season, we talk a lot of ball, we have a lot of fun. I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry. So if you want to see all the cool stuff I get up to while still being up to date what goes on this very YouTube channel, then please give me a follow at TailgateNate29, Twitter, Instagram. Feel free to email me at tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Want to thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me and the channel, and however you may be doing so. Prediction season has seen a lot of growth for the channel, and I am very thankful for that. Let's dive on in and start talking about the Georgia State Panthers and your head coach, Del McGee. Again, another season where Georgia State really did struggle last year. However, when you take a look up and down this roster, there are some solid pieces that coming back, both offensively and defensively. And there is some bit of upside to look forward to, as well as this portal class, guys, brings in some good talent. So will Georgia State still sit at the bottom of the Sun Belt, at least towards it, or can they make that climb back up? Find out what I think in this video, because this video is here overall to tell you what I think about the Panthers in 2025. Let me tell you how we do it. Go through a roster preview. It looks like this. Offense over here, defense over here, and at the end of the video, we'll go through the Georgia State football schedule. I'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is here to tell all of you, again, what I think about the Panthers in 2025. Down below me, returning production numbers are according to ESPN. They factor in portal additions up to a certain yet very small percentage, and then your recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 are both according to 24/7 Sports. Take it over with your offensive coordinator, Hugh Jackson. Yes, that Hugh Jackson. He's your offensive coordinator this season, and your starting quarterback from last year, at least your primary option, is going to return this season. Now, his last name is not pronounced anything like it says, so I'll pronounce it for you right here. Christian Veillere. He is set to return to start in 2025. I think there are a couple of transfers in this room that could give him a run for his money. Cameron Brown is a guy that comes over from Texas Tech. Did not really have that much playing time last season, but is a guy with some pretty decent upside. And then PJ Hatter is a Texas State transfer. Same sort of conversation there. However, Veillere was the primary passer last year, 2,047 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions with this program last season on 57% completion percentage. I think it's Veillere's job to lose. I think it's going to end up being his starting quarterback position, and he will again help lead this Georgia State offense. Now, what is going to be going on around him is definitely a lot of change, right? The running back room, it's going to be entirely overhauled. You lose some really good pieces out of it. Freddie Brock has transferred over to Oklahoma State, 819 yards, 8 touchdowns on 5.4 yards per carry last season. And then your second leading rusher, Michael Dukes, has just utilized his collegiate eligibility, 365 yards, 2 touchdowns, but averaged 5.8 yards per carry, and was always really serviceable as that backup in the running back position. Christian Veillere is not a guy that's going to get outside of the pocket and run. So, okay, you're looking for some other pieces to step up here. Well, a lot of your depth that could have stepped up this year has also entered the transfer portal. If not, is going to get lost in the depth. I should say, enter the portal or graduated, or some of those guys are going to get lost in the depth of the really good running back class that this team brings in. They really do bring in a great group of running backs. Rashad Amos, he's transferring over from Ole Miss, where he only had 9 carries last year. Okay, let's take you back to what he did with Miami, Ohio in 2023. 1,075 yards and 13 touchdowns for the Red Hawks that year. Believed they won a Mid-American Conference Championship, if my memory is serving me correctly, and he was a massive reason why. He is now back in the G5 realm with a Georgia State program that is really going to be able to utilize his efforts. But wait, there's more. You are going to also be bringing in a guy by the name of Jordan Simmons, who is a former Michigan State transfer, but with the Akron Zips last year, averaged nearly 6 yards per carry, 664 yards, a pair of touchdowns. That's some great stuff out of him. And then you also bring in Branson Robinson. Where's he transferring over from? Oh yeah, the Georgia Bulldogs. We all know how they develop running backs over there. So guys, when you look at this running back stable, there is another transfer they bring in here as well in DJ Braswell. He's a South Carolina transfer, but he's going to sit back of the other three names that I just mentioned. So you look at Amos, Robinson, Simmons, 1, 2, 3. You can easily go 3 deep in this running back room, and I would be honestly kind of appalled if they didn't play at least all 3 guys in some capacity this year. They all bring different things to the table, and I think it gives your running back room probably the feature of this offense this year. I think that's probably their best unit because of the talent they bring in through the transfer portal. However, you still got some good pieces elsewhere. Your lead wide receiver in Ted Hurst is going to be coming back. Last season, as again, the leading receiver for this Panther team, 961 yards and 9 touchdowns. Him and Veillere, quite the connection there. However, the depth around him is going to change. Skip one bullet point. Your lead monster tight end in Dorian Fleming has transferred over to the Maryland Terrapins. Michael Dukes was your 3rd overall leading receiver. We've already talked about him being gone. Petey Tucker is transferring over to Colorado State. You're also going to be losing some other players surrounding this unit there as well that gave you some solid production last season. Now, you do return another solid piece in DJ Riles, so he's going to end up being a solid returner for you. But other than that, I mean, you're going to rely on some transfers. Javon Robinson is a Grambling State transfer. A couple other guys that are going to sit back in this 2 deep as well. So it is still going to go through its fair share of change. But man, when you get your lead man, Ted Hurst, back, look for him and Veillere to connect a lot this season, and probably a little bit more than the 56 times they did a season ago. Again, I already told you your lead tight end is gone. He had 49 catches for 558 yards, 6 touchdowns last season. He's off to Maryland, but you have a Gardner Webb transfer that's going to step in and fill that gap for you. Camden Overton Howard. He's also formerly from the Chattanooga Mocs as well. So a couple of stops at the FCS level before, bam, stepping up here and playing in the FBS level. Georgia State team looking to find their groove offensively. And then Avion McBride had a few catches last year, but notable to announce that he's returning to the tight end room as well. So there's your skill position room. Again, when you talk about it, it's got some great high upside pieces. Your running back room, I think it's filled with a couple of bona fide studs. I think Rashad Amos is one of those. I think Jordan Simmons, you could absolutely make the case on why he is. Ted Hurst coming back to the wide receiver room means big things for Christian Veillere as well as this offense overall. Now, the tight end debacle, I don't think you're going to quite fill the need for Dorian Fleming. I just don't think that's going to happen. So you're probably going to have to adapt how you utilize your tight end a little bit this season, because I don't think you're going to get the production that Fleming gave you last year out of your tight end room this year. However, there still are a lot of solid pieces here. Can the offensive line hold up, though? There is going to be a lot of pieces that are going to need replacing, and that's big because the offensive line really did not have that poor of a season last year. 4.4 yards per carry out of this run game. Also speaks to the talent that they did have last year. But if that offensive line can stay good in run blocking this year, I already told you what I think of the talent they got in this backfield. And then in the sack department, only 22 sacks. And look, Zach Gibson was a guy that threw 140 less passes than Veillere last year. Zach Gibson is transferred out of the program, was the second leading passer, had over 1,000 yards. He got sacked more times than Veillere did last year. What does that say about the offensive line? I'll let you draw your own conclusion. He got sacked 12 times. Veillere only got sacked 9. And Veillere definitely a guy that can get outside of the pocket and scramble. He doesn't want to, though. He's kind of a, okay, I'll do it if I must sort of guy, right? But the offensive line with all the turnover, you question on what the what the maintaining standpoint of that success looks like, if that made any sense at all. You only got 2 returners that are projected to start. The rest are filled in by transfers. You got a lot of transfers in the 2 deep as well. So a couple questions still about the offense, but man, you can't deny the talent that is here under your offensive coordinator, Hugh Jackson. Let's move on to your defensive coordinator and Travis Pearson and this defense overall. Look, for as high upside as this offense brings, you need your defense to stand up. It needs improvement in pretty much every area. Now, did force, I believe, 16, 17 turnovers last year, 17 of them last season. And you do lose a lot of pieces that could have provided some good upside for you this year. So a bunch of new talent, either guys that are returning and are going to step up, but also transfers are going to look to make this a better unit than it was last year. However, the defensive line does have a lot of notable returners. There are some solid pieces that leave. Sure, I could list those off, but I'm not going to. Go find them out for yourself. There are some solid pieces that leave, yes. But you have a lot of notable returning pieces. Henry Bryant is coming back to that nose tackle position. Ian Matthews is back to be an edge rusher for you. And this is a defensive front room, even with its losses, has a ton of experience. Your entire starting defensive line is projected to be seniors from the defensive end, nose tackle, D tackle, even when you throw in an edge rusher to that point as well. He's a transfer, Marlon Dean, but he is a solid piece and an experienced player. Coming over from Utah State, he'll get more playing time here with the Georgia State Panthers. Linebacking room, well, your lead backer in Josiah Robinson, hey, he does come back. That is a really big get back for this defense. Believe he was, yes, second leading tackler last year, 62 tackles, 3.5 sacks from last season with 3 passes defended. Now, you do lose your sack leader on this defense. Kevin Swint did have 4.5 sacks last year and has always, I should say over the past 2 seasons, been a good player for this Georgia State team, so on and so forth. There are a couple of other really good linebacking losses. However, Demaine Wilson, true sophomore, good talented kid. He's going to step up in a starting position role this year. And then sitting behind, again, you can include the jack position, that edge rusher type, Marlon Dean, again, transferring over from Utah State. You got some guys coming into the 2 deep from the portal as well, but really surrounding Josiah Robinson, it is going to be an all-new crew in the roles that they're playing and an all-new crew with this program here as well. Again, even Marlon Dean going to play a much bigger role here with Georgia State than he did at Utah State last season. Defensive backfield, let's talk about it. Your top 5 defensive backs in terms of tackles, as well as interceptions and pass breakups, are all gone. Now, again, that the top 5 defensive backs are in terms of tackles, but in those were some of your interception and pass defended leaders. Let's go through a couple of your INT leaders. Kenyatta Wilson, he is gone after a 40 tackle season, by far the best season of his career, did lead the team with 3 interceptions. Okay, let's get into a top 5 tackler. Jai Gilmore, he's transferred in city. We've seen that before with Dean Connors, went from Rice to Houston. That's in city. Jai Gilmore went in city over to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets after a 54 tackle year where he did pick off 2 passes. Your leading tackler, Jeremiah Johnson, 69 tackles, 6 passes defended. 6 passes defended, was second on the team. And then Gavin Pringle, leading cornerback over the past couple of years, did have 8 passes defended as well as a pick last season while being a top 10 tackler on this team. So you get the idea of the talent this secondary loses. However, D.I.C. Hopkins, probably one of the better names in college football, he's going to come back as your biggest returning piece. And again, a lot of transfers going to fit into this secondary unit. Tyler Scott is going to be transferring into play corner. He's an Auburn transfer, and opposite him is Bernard Casey, or Casey, however you pronounce the last name. He's an LSU transfer, so a couple SEC guys there. And then a safety transfer this year in Jordan Huff, 20 tackles in 2024, 27 tackles a couple years ago. He's an East Carolina transfer. As far as your special teams goes, Liam Rickman, he's going to be back to kick as your primary place kicker, but your punting room this year is all new. A couple transfers come in to battle out for the spot. There is your special teams report. Kickers are people too, and they got a hard job. We got to show them some love. So, already talked to you in length about the offense. So, defensively, you just need everything to step up, man. That pass rush has got to get better. Your secondary's got to get better at not giving up those big pass plays, etc., etc. I could go on and on. The physicality level, the aggressiveness level, it's all got to get better for this Georgia State team. I think some of your transfers you're bringing in, especially to that defensive backfield, a couple of SEC guys, can step up and play pretty significant roles. But I got to see that happen on the field before I can really make any sort of assumption. However, the upside of this offense can really help lead this team to some good wins. Obviously, when I preview the roster, I talk about what they can accomplish, what they can do. What do I think they're actually going to do? Well, here's the 2025 Georgia State football schedule. But before we dive into this, let's look below me at some odds from FanDuel. Not me telling you to go place your money. It just does provide some nice, good context to see how good the odds makers think Georgia State's going to be this year. And these odds are current as of recording this video. Now, what I mentioned in a video put out earlier today, FanDuel has seemingly changed their formula a little bit, or there's something weird going on with the website. The highest number you used to be able to get in terms of your odds to get to the college football playoff was 10,000. Right now, Georgia State's at plus 5,000, which is the new highest number they're giving out, apart from a couple of choice programs, Kent State being one, so on and so forth. Biggest number, though, you got to pay attention to with these group of 5 teams is that over-under win total, 3.5. I think that speaks to some of the questions that they still have, as well as the building process needed within that program, and especially the concerns that you got on defense. And this non-conference schedule, man, it's tough. It really, really is tough. However, I do think you get a win in non-conference play. It is not going to be against Ole Miss. Really talented team that's got a lot of offensive upside. Lane Kiffin's one of the best offensive minds in the country. And watch out for Austin Simmons this year, man. I know Jackson Dart's not an easy guy to replace, but if Austin Simmons flashes the potential over a consistent span that we've seen him flash before, I mean, man, Ole Miss is still going to be really dangerous offensively. And while the defense might take a step back, I don't think it's going to take that big of a step back that some people may be thinking. So Ole Miss still going to be solid. They'll compete well in the SEC. Memphis. All right, Memphis is a team that is going to be replacing a lot of pieces from last year. Yes, you lose pretty much everybody. Seth Hennigan, that longtime quarterback, is gone, etc., etc. I could sit up here and list off players for days. However, Ryan Silverfield, he has set the massive foundation as the coach within this program, and the Memphis standard is still going to be really, really high. I understand this is a home game. With the offensive upside, you can really take it to this Memphis defense and give them a struggle, and I think Georgia State does. They're going to do that with a lot of teams this year. However, I do think Memphis is going to be a team that still competes at a very high level overall in college football and in the American Conference. That's a team in Memphis that I really like still. They bring in some good portal pieces, and the returning talent they have, not too bad overall. Okay, I did tell you you'd win a game in non-conference play. Look, Murray State's an FCS level program. You're looking at them thinking, okay, we can beat that. And they're going to be one of the better ones at that level. And then you beat Vanderbilt last season. However, the Commodores have a lot of good returning pieces. So, okay, which one of those do you win? Well, I do think you're going to end up beating Murray State, a team at the FCS level that, while I still think the Racers can have a fairly solid season, I do think, again, the offensive upside can really take it, and the talent discrepancy can start to show itself, especially in that running back room. I don't think Murray State's going to be able to handle what all you can throw them purely from a rushing standpoint when you throw in the passing game there from Veyer to Ted Hurst. Game, set, match. On the road at Vanderbilt, though, you are going to lose, and the Commodores will get their revenge from last season. Just think, guys, Vandy could have had a 7-win season last year if they would have beat a Georgia State team that, looking back, I mean, a game that they honestly probably should have won. But this year for Vandy, Diego Pavia is back. Eli Stowers is going to be one of the best tight ends in the country. You got some really good transfers coming in there. And this is a program that you kind of sat back and looked at and said, okay, I like what Clark Lee is doing, but they emerged this year. Well, okay, and now you're taking a look at Vanderbilt as having some real staying power in the SEC. Maybe not towards the top of the leaderboard, probably not at all, but it is very much a Vandy team that you're looking at and thinking, okay, they can compete. They can hang around. They are not the Vandy team anymore that you look out on your schedule and say, yep, easy win. And Georgia State, I think, is really going to struggle on the road against this program, and that is a loss. Bye week before you get into conference play, but conference play is going to be really tough for you this year, man. I really am just not seeing many games on this schedule that I would pin down as, the games that you are likely to win. I don't know how many games they're going to be favored in. Maybe one, if not two, and it comes later on in the schedule. We'll talk about that when they get there. But hey, well, what a way to start off your Sun Belt Conference schedule, right? You got to play James Madison. Yikes. James Madison's going to be one of the best group of 5 teams in the country, I believe, this year. I think Bob Chesney is building this team into a really good success story. James Madison had a slightly down year compared to what they were seeing at Kurt Signetti and Bob Chesney's first season. However, he's going to get everything really figured out, honed in this year. James Madison returned a lot of pieces, yet still added talent in position groupings where you could have figured they were already set through the transfer portal. And I think they're going to be one of the biggest challengers to Boise State in that G5 race. App State is going through a lot of changes this year. New quarterback as Joey Aguilar is transferred out. AJ Swan is transferred in. Albeit, though, some good skill position pieces are there, such as Kanye Roberts at the running back position. App State is also a team with some solid defensive pieces, but they are under new management when Dowell Loggins is going to take over and be that head coach. I think App State has its ups, has its downs, and if Georgia State's going to try to take advantage of some of the defensive holes that App State has got, I mean, maybe they got it mostly figured out, if not all figured out by now. You're getting into mid-October by this point in the season, but Georgia State's offensive upside can hang with this Mountaineer program. I just think Appalachian State has that foundation set a little bit too well, and I think they're still going to see a good amount of success, while this Georgia State defense still does concern me quite a bit. On the road against Georgia Southern, defense will falter here. This is a Georgia Southern team that has going to have some really good high upside offensive pieces. J.C. French, O.J. Arnold, really good pieces in the wide receiver room, both returners and portal pieces, while the defense can take another nice step in the right direction this season under Clay Helton. So you lose to the in-state team right there in Georgia Southern, and now it's your first cross-divisional game of the Sun Belt season. Sun Belt, the only conference at the FBS level that still does have divisions. You play everyone in your division, you get two teams from the other one. That's how it works. South Alabama, one of the teams you're going to get from the opposite side, and I think you drop it. Even though it is a home game, look, it's a pretty quick turnaround. You got to go from playing on a Saturday right around to playing on a Thursday against the South Alabama team that I still think is going to be coached really well by Major Applewhite and has got a lot of good solid pieces sitting within it, especially if Devin Voisin gets back and playing healthy. The graduate wide receiver could be the best wide receiver weapon in the Sun Belt Conference. I really do truly believe that. And then Kentrell Bullock at running back. No matter who plays quarterback, South Alabama's got some good skill position players and some solid pieces defensively, even transfers that'll help boost that unit in the right direction. You get your second bye week here, and then on the road against Coastal Carolina, I think you drop this one as well. Tim Beck, I don't think is as good of a coach as we saw with Jamie Chadwell. I just don't believe that. However, with this Coastal Carolina team, guys, they're still going to be dangerous. I still think they're going to compete at a fairly decent level. They are losing their starting quarterback, Ethan Vasco. However, MJ Morris, Emmett Brown, they've both seen some really nice, solid time wherever they have been throughout their collegiate careers. Jalen John, as a UMass transfer, had a good season rushing the football with the Minutemen last year. Think he can do the same here with the Chanticleers. Good wide receiver room and free concessions, by the way, all season long. I think really going to help prepare this Coastal Carolina team to a win, especially with those free concessions at home. Now, again, I did tell you there were some games that are winnable on the schedule. Marshall is one of those games because Marshall loses everything from last year. Charles Huff has gone to Southern Miss. All of their talent, pretty much all their talent is gone. I think they have the worst returning production number in all of college football because they got decimated through the transfer portal. Albeit they are bringing in some solid pieces through the portal this year. And I think people are sleeping on Marshall. Now, again, this high offensive upside, an offense that I could see performing really, really well this year, I think can also be overshadowed by a defense that still sees a lot of struggles this season. And I think that's exactly what happens here against Marshall and really throughout the season. Marshall still got a lot of good, solid pieces on it. Read a couple of those pieces off for you now. Carlos Del Rio Wilson, Zion Turner, two pretty solid quarterbacks I think can help lead him to a pretty solid year. Tony Mathis as a running back is a guy that's seen Power 4 time. I like a lot of your transfer portal pieces you're bringing in to the wide receiver room. Defensively, there actually are some fairly solid returners here, especially in the secondary, and the secondary brings in some good talent, bringing some high upside pieces on that side of the ball. And I just think with Tony Gibson, this is a Marshall team that's going to exceed expectations a little bit. I think a lot of people just looking at Marshall and saying, yeah, they're not really going to be that great this year. Or you could be looking at Marshall and saying, hey, I think they're going to be a lot better than expected. I do think Marshall's still going to be a competitive bunch, but they see their struggles. One of those games, though, is not Georgia State. I think Marshall does win that game. Troy's another team here that you could look at and say, yeah, they could struggle, but I think Troy's going to take a step up this year, actually. Defense is always going to play physical. I don't think they're going to shut down because a lot of people are going to have a hard time slowing down every weapon Georgia State can throw at you offensively this season. However, Troy's a team that if Goose Crowder can stay healthy, I like some of their offensive pieces. I do really like Goose Crowder, who was having a good season before he went down with injury last year. And Gerard Parker is always going to let this defense play hard. And then Old Dominion. People sleeping on Old Dominion this year. This team made some excellent strides towards getting into a bowl game last year. And I think they can finally hit that mark in 2025. Old Dominion's got some solid pieces coming back, and the Monarchs will be a dangerous, possibly sneaky team out of the Sun Belt Conference. So yet another team that I have really struggling through their schedule and going just 1-11 this year. The high upside offensive talent cannot be ignored, and it can really help drive Georgia State to some good wins this year. They can, I think, and they have the ability to outscore some of these opponents here on the scoreboard, which they very well might need to do this season. But the talent in the Sun Belt, especially out of the teams that they're playing, it's going to be really, really good. They have a tough non-conference slate, and that defense, man, I think is really going to hold them back this season. However, they can get a lot more than one win. I fully recognize that. Again, like I said, that offense, I think, can outscore a lot of teams. But they overall see their struggles. I just don't think Georgia State's going to be that great of a football team at the end of the day this year, at least record-wise. But let me know what you think about the Panthers in the comment section below. And remember to play hard but tailgate harder. Just 2 teams left. Tulsa and Kent State, they come out tomorrow. See y'all in the next video. Goodbye.